WRVA, the voice of Virginia. Okay, I want to bring something up, a story that was in the headlines, and I want to follow up on it. We've actually had guests on talking about that, this very subject. So, there are homeschoolers in the Commonwealth of Virginia that would like to participate in public school sports. The Virginia High School Athletic Association says, nope, if you're homeschooled, then you don't get to participate in sports. Now, I thought, okay, legitimately, when I first heard about this, I'm like, yeah, I think they have a point. But then I learned there's other kids that aren't enrolled in the schools through different programs that can still play in sports. It's just the homeschool kids that are being denied access in public sports. So there was a big hearing that went on today, something advanced in this story, and I wanted to get a follow-up. So we've invited Josh, and I'm going to make sure I get his name correctly, Hetzler, who is the legislative counsel, for the Family Foundation, to join us here on News Radio WRVA. Josh, good morning. How are you?
Good. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Give us, for those that haven't been following this story and this case, we actually talked to some folks the day before this lawsuit was filed to allow homeschoolers to participate in public school sports. Give everybody just maybe a quick little thumbnail of what this lawsuit's about, and then we can go from there.
Sure. There's 66,000 homeschoolers in Virginia, and that number is growing rapidly every year. And many of them want to play high school sports. And, 30 states already allow this. It's not been a problem. And this is the Virginia High School League has been deemed to be a state actor by courts. So the Constitution applies to them. So they need to be able to treat everyone equally. They need to respect people's religious beliefs. And that's all we're asking them to do. So our client wants to be able to run track and cross country. He can do so on a team. He could do so unattached as an individual runner. And he just wants to be able to play sports like the other kids. So
wait a second, Josh. I didn't know this. You mean he just wants to, he would be like Notre Dame. He just be independent, not affiliated. He can just go out there and represent himself and participate in some of these track meets is what he's asking for?
Yeah, that's one of the things. We say, hey, he should be able to play for his local high school team. He pays taxes. He would otherwise go there. But if that's not okay, then he'll run as an individual runner like they do in college.
So I didn't even know that, and I've been following the story for a little bit. Okay, so that was the lawsuit that was filed, and when I first did the interview, I'm like, I'm not sure about that. I think that, you need to go to the high school. But then I found out there's other kids that aren't enrolled in school all day, but they still get to show up and participate in sports even though they're not on campus.
Right. So private schools are allowed to participate in VHSL sanctioned events. So you don't have to be a public school student. And then additionally, those who are in virtual school who are 100% educated at home, but technically through a public school, they get to go play for their local team, even though they never step foot in that building and they don't know any of the kids. So they're basically homeschooled, but they're allowed to play. And then when you consider the kids that go to governor's schools, for example, if they don't have a sport that at their school, they're still allowed to go to their home school and play their district school where they live. And they get to play that sport, even though they don't attend that school. And then lastly, let me point out that VHSL allows interstate competition with teams from other states. And that includes states that allow homeschoolers to play on those teams. So they're playing against homeschoolers, but they won't let homeschoolers play in Virginia. So our point is there's a lot of reasons why everybody is allowed to play, just not Virginia homeschoolers. And we just don't think that's fair.
All right. We're talking right now with Josh Hetzler, who's the legislative counsel for the Family Foundation, who's been participating and helping with this lawsuit, a young man who wants to be able to run cross country, homeschool. And again, I'll be honest with you, Josh, when I first saw this story, I was 100% in favor of the Virginia High School, the VHSL. And then when I found out kids that go to school virtually that don't show up on campus are able to participate, I'm saying that's a double standard right there. So once we got into the lawsuit and it got filed, what's the latest rulings, and what are you hearing back from the VHSL?
Yeah, so we went into federal court and we asked the court to give us a preliminary injunction, which means that our kid could start running now while the litigation continues, because it could be a year or two before this thing gets wrapped up. So we want to get him running track, cross country that starts in August. The judge recently ruled denying our preliminary injunction, but she did something really interesting. So on our equal protection claim, she says, well, right at this early stage, you haven't shown enough to overcome the state's rational basis in saying that they have some reason. And we don't think they have good reasons, but fair enough. At the early stage, preliminary injunctions are discretionary. But then she did something really interesting. Our religion claims, she said, I'm not going to hear those. You're going to have to take those into state court because they're state law claims. So under Virginia's Constitution, we've got religious freedom protections, and we've got the Virginia Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And we have very strong claims. But so what we're going to have to do is in the next week or so, file a new case in state court and ask for the same thing by a state judge. So we're very hopeful that we'll still get it because we think ultimately, our parents, our students, they homeschool in part because of their religious beliefs. That's their convictions. That's not true for all homeschoolers, but for many it is. And we say, look, you shouldn't be denied a public benefit just because you're exercising your religious beliefs. We think we can win on that, but it's going to take a little bit longer because of the federal judges didn't want to hear those claims.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure. I watch a lot of Law and Order, but I'm kind of confused here. We're in the U.S. Supreme Court, correct? Or we're in the federal justice system or the state system?
Yeah, we're in the federal court. The district court.
And the district judge said, I see what you're talking about, but in federal court, I'm not going to rule on religious standing. You got to take that back to the state courts in Virginia.
Yeah. It doesn't happen often. And the reason she did it was she said, those are issues of state law. And I'm a federal judge. I don't feel comfortable ruling on those. Let the state courts handle that. Now, typically that doesn't happen. She has the option to rule on state law claims, but she says, no, I'm not going to. So It was unexpected. So again, we're going this week or next week into state court. And we're going to argue the same thing, and hopefully we're going to get a win for our client.
Okay, so they pushed back and said, take that to Virginia Commonwealth Court for the religious, but the other part of, is it the double standard of some kids participate, some don't?
Yeah.
Where do they leave you there? Because that's where I'm getting confused.
So either we can go forward in federal court on that one claim and see if we can win it on the merits, and we can have a separate claim in state court just on the religion claims. We're trying to figure out what the best strategy is. One way or another, I'm hopeful. I'm very, confident that we can win, but we're frankly more likely to win on our religious claims because there's greater protections for religion in Virginia. So we just want to get this kid running. And again, they shouldn't be denied a public benefit because they're exercising their religious beliefs.
So right now, what's he doing? He's not running with the team. Is he running on his own? And what's next? So they didn't give. I'm sorry. Again, I want to make sure everybody understands this. They didn't give you the injunction, so he's still not able to participate. Correct?
Right.
Okay.
So if we get an injunction by August, he can start running for cross country, which he really likes doing long distance. So we're hopeful for that. He's just finishing up 9th grade, so he's got 3 more years to run. He wants to run it in college or be eligible for college scholarships, but you really can't get college scholarships, especially in track, unless you can record your times on this MileStat, which is this sort of, and if you don't do that, the recruiters, the college coaches, they just can't see, they can't compare you to other kids. So we want him to have that opportunity, and without running for the public schools, you just can't have that.
Can I ask you?
So
I'm sorry, please. Let me just ask you this because we're coming up on time. Why is he doing this? Is this for him, or is this something bigger? Because this is a lot. I'm going to be honest with you, Josh. This is a lot to put on a 14-year-old kid, and I'm concerned about him and his well-being because it's tough being in the news like that, especially for a 14-year-old kid. And I know he's standing up for the right thing, and I know he's standing up for religious liberty, and I know he's standing up for his rights over here. But that's an awful lot of weight to put on such a young man's shoulders.
That's a very good question. We did not seek this family out. They came to us and they were very motivated to bring this lawsuit because they realized it's the only way that he could run. And so we said, okay, we'll take a look into it. We're not sure, but it turned out we felt like a lawsuit was a good option. And we've asked along the way, if this young man, are you okay with making a statement at a press conference? Yes. Are you okay with this? And he sees this as not just running for himself, but opening the door for lots of other homeschoolers in Virginia to be able to participate. And so he's very brave. And I think it's a fair question. And I'm convinced that he is up to this. He wants to run, but he also wants other kids like him to run too.
Okay. Last thing I have for you, because I saw the response back from the Virginia high school folks that it was a lot of little, I'm going to say, I don't want to be too pejorative, but it was a lot of bureaucratic stuff. Well, I don't know what kind of insurance we're going to need for him. It just seemed like they were putting up roadblocks to justify that virtual kids who go to the don't step foot on campus can participate, but this kid who doesn't step foot on campus can't.
Yeah, I'm not really buying the answers they gave. We tried to anticipate what reasons might
share with us the answers they gave you.
Well, they said he didn't meet the same academic, qualifications, and we said that's not true. He takes all of these. He takes 8 courses, and he gets grades in all of them, and he excels in the standardized tests, and he gives that to the school every year, things like that. And then they said, well, it's going to cost us more money, and we said, no, it's not going to cost you more money because we pay taxes and we don't get any of that benefit. And look, he'll pay a fee if that's what's necessary, and just let him run unattached, and we'll get our own insurance. And they ultimately, I think the judge said, well, there could be an extra cost here, so that's probably good enough for now. So if we go forward on this case, we're going to have to prove that it doesn't really cost them anything. We think we think they gain money by not having to educate our students. So for him to participate in an extracurricular like track, it's not going to cost them anything. So we didn't really think their arguments were very compelling, but they had to give an answer, and their lawyers fought for them. So
would he be willing? Would the family be willing, or would there be people that would be willing to step up to pay for that extra insurance policy for him and him alone?
I think they're willing to do that, and I don't think it's a high cost at all. I think it's very, very nominal. Besides, you can't sue the government easily. They have sovereign immunity, so they don't. The insurance really is a non-issue. But they put up their arguments, and the judge thought they said enough. And remember, this is an early stage. This isn't on. We still have to go through the trial and present all this. The judge just said, "Well, I don't see enough to let you start running right now."
So it's not a no. It's not. You didn't lose. They just didn't give you an early injunction.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to keep an eye on this, Josh. Can we get you back on so we can stay on top of this? I think this is important for us to know. Again, listen, I get the best intentions of the Virginia high school, the VHSL folks. I get their best intentions. I know what they're in their heart. Sometimes bureaucracy gets in the way. I'm not saying they're evil, mean people, but this is something I think that needs to be addressed. And when we have conversations like this, I think it improves the community. I'd love to see this young man be able to participate, but I also like to protect the interest of the schools as well and the well-being, because I'm one of my things, and I know I'm over here. One of my original things was, if I've got a kid that doesn't go to the school and he shows up and he takes a roster spot from a kid that goes to school there every day, I don't think that's right. But then I found out there's kids that go to school virtually that could take that roster spot as well. So all the arguments I had originally have kind of gone out the window, and I see his point, and I hope cooler heads will prevail. And I hope everyone remembers, this is about the kids. This is not about adults and bureaucracy.
Right. That's right. Amen to that.
Hey, thank you so much for joining me, Josh. We'll stay in touch with you and keep us updated on what's going on.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Take care. Josh Hetzler from the Family Foundation. I'd love to hear your 2 cents on this right now. 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. The James Rivera text line is waiting for you to comment. All right, coming up on the program, George Allen joins us in the next hour here on News Radio WRVA. Let me tell you about A Plus Roofing real quick. My friends over at A Plus Roofing want to remind everybody they are not immune when it comes